Okay, so I want to start with that, showing you an example for implementing the new regulation requirements from 2025 onwards. So this is a company which has to adapt the new reporting requirements according to the CSRD and the ESRS, beginning from the reporting year 2025 and not beginning from the year 2024, because this company or this group is not listed on the capital market. So all the companies which are listed on the capital market have to implement the new reporting requirements and to disclose the new metrics beginning from the year 2024. And this is one of the companies, a corporation, which has to be reported from 2025 onwards. So this is what you here see on the timeline. And with that, I want to give you an impression about what the companies are doing at the moment to fulfill this standard. So they start really early to fulfill these requirements in 2025. Here, this company started in 2022 as they knew that there will come a new regulation. The Hager Group, this is the information from Hager Group I'm sharing here with you, as a supplier of solutions and services for electrical installations, in residential buildings, in commercial buildings, in industrial buildings. For example, they provide cable management or security systems. It's a group which is operating worldwide, but they are not listed on the capital market, and so they have to disclose this information regarding the ESRS from 2025 onwards. And they started in 2022. And in 2022, they knew that they have to fulfill these requirements, but the ESRS were not disclosed. So they did not know which metrics they have to disclose. They only knew that they had to disclose and that they have to make their sustainability reporting transparent. That was not the case before, but they did not know what they have to disclose. So they started with the frameworks which were already published and which were already available for them. And they started with a national framework, Deutsche Nachhaltigkeitskodex, looked at the metrics which are written down there and tried to implement these criteria and to collect the data they would have to disclose according to this framework. And then they switched to the standards of the Global Reporting Initiative, and all this information is already very detailed. The sustainability reporting information according to the GRI standards. And because we have some kind of harmonization, of standardization between the GRI and the ESRS, they thought it would be more easy to have the GRI standards implemented and then switch to the ESRS. Then the ESRS are adopted, so that they can start very early and implementing sustainability reporting to find all the information they need, to decide about the responsibilities in the company, who has to collect the information, and then to bring it together into the sustainability report. So this was the timeline. And in this example, and we will stick to this example, and this is the reporting process in the company, and you see some different steps they need to disclose their report. We start with the state assessment, a strategy alignment, and when we have this point of stakeholder engagement, I want to talk to you afterwards. Stakeholder engagement as the basis for the materiality assessment, which again forms the basis for the data collection and the disclosure of this data, because we have to decide which data to disclose. In the first presentation, you told us that there are some data missing. There's a lack of information which is disclosed in the moment, and they have to adjust their disclosures and that they are not compliant with the future reporting obligations. But we have to consider that probably they don't have to fulfill all the requirements which are listed in the ESRS. They do not necessarily have to disclose all the data points, all the 1,100 data points which are included in the ESRS. They have to choose the relevant, the material information for the company. And the basis for this material assessment, what is relevant for the company from an inside out and outside in perspective, we have mentioned that session before, is the stakeholder engagement. What do the stakeholder expect from the company to be a material information? And then we have different stakeholder, and we have to identify what are the relevant stakeholder for our company, for example, the customer, the investor, the NGOs, and when we have to ask them for their needs. And that forms the basis for the materiality assessment. And then afterwards, we know what do we have to disclose. So not all of the information which is required in the ESRS has to be disclosed from all of the companies. It depends from the company itself, from the sector and from the specific company. And then we start in collecting the data and making an audit, an internal audit, and then afterwards follows the disclosure of the report. So when we have different structure of companies and groups, and we have to find all the data which we need to combine them in the sustainability report. And we have to collect this data from different brands, countries, companies in the group. We also talked about that in the second presentation, that different standards are fulfilled in different regions. And then we have to get this information. For example, here you can see with office in the middle of the slide, the gender equality will be measured there. Where we can find this information. Also relevant on this level will be key figures about energy, about waste. And in the production units, they also have to measure, for example, key figures related to energy, which amount of renewable energy is consumed, or which amount of energy from non-renewable energy, or fossil fuels, for example. So we also have to identify where do we have to collect all this information. So we have different structures of the company. We have to combine all the needed data. So, and we have to inform all the departments, and we have to identify responsibilities, who is responsible for collecting this data, and in all these companies. And then we have, based on the materiality assessment, a long list of topics we have to disclose. And based on this long list, we choose the key performance indicator, the non-financial key performance indicator, and identify the detailed metrics and measurements we have to use. So we have the standards, the ESRS, and not all of these topics which are mentioned there are relevant for our company. And we have to form a long list of all the topics included in the ESRS. And when we rate these topics and identify what we want to disclose, what is material for us. So then here you can see the clusters which correspond to the different ESRS. For example, ESRS E1 is climate change mitigation, and when we have got through this list, and when we have, for example, ESRS E3, the cluster code 3, water and marine resources, and when we have the different topics which are related to all these standards, and then we decide what do we have then to disclose from these topics, subtopics and sub-subtopics, what is material for us. And that is done through a materiality assessment, a double materiality assessment from the outside-in perspective. What is the impact of the company on the environment, for example? What is the sustainable behavior of the company? What's the impact? The inside-out perspective on the one hand, and on the other hand, the outside-in perspective. How is the company influenced by, for example, climate change? So we combine these two perspectives, and we have to disclose the information if we have then an impact on the environment on a social level or on a governmental level, or we have to disclose the information if we are impacted by this climate change mitigation, by all these topics, or if both of that is combined with each other. So we have only one part here where we don't have to disclose information, where we have a low impact and a low financial risk or opportunity. So in 3 cases, we have to disclose information. In 1 case, we don't have to disclose information. If there's a financial risk or a financial opportunity, this is the outside-in perspective when we have to disclose it, or on the other hand, if we have an inside-out perspective, if we have an impact on the environment or related to social matters, when we have to disclose it, or if it both is combined with each other, then it is also a material information we cannot hide. And here you see again some examples for this supplier of solutions for electrical installations. We have a high impact on the environment regarding air, water, and land pollution, so we have to disclose that. And biodiversity and ecosystems, for example, so we also have to disclose that. And then we have a high impact and a high financial risk resulting from climate change mitigation, for example, because the costs, we have greenhouse gas emissions, so this is the impact, but we have also increasing costs resulting from using more renewable energy. So we also have to disclose that. And then we have a high financial risk resulting from resource use and circularity, because we have to invest in the products. So we also have to disclose on that. We don't have to disclose topics about ethical business conduct, water and marine resources, or corporate governance, because we have a low impact and we are not, we don't have a financial risk resulting from the points. So, and how can we decide which of these topics have a high impact or a high financial risk? And to get this information, we make a stakeholder engagement, a stakeholder dialogue, and have to get the information from all our stakeholders. And therefore, we have to identify what are the relevant stakeholders. And here we have a sector agnostic standard ESRS 1. And this says that the stakeholders are relevant for the materiality assessment process. And we also have seen that before. What are our stakeholders? There are the affected stakeholders, individuals or groups whose interests are affected or could be affected positively or negatively by the undertakings activities through the products, for example, or the services they use, and its direct and indirect business relationships across its value chain, and users of sustainability statements, primary user of financial reporting, for example, investors or lenders and other creditors may be relevant stakeholders. And then in section 24, engagement with affected stakeholders is central to the undertaking's ongoing due diligence process and sustainability materiality assessment. So we have to consider the opinions of the stakeholders to identify what are the material topics. We have to include the expectations of the stakeholder. We have to make workshops, for example, in the company to identify what are relevant topics. We have to discuss with my stakeholders. We have to get feedback from our customers. We have to ask them, what are the material topics? When we have some more examples about relevant stakeholders listed in the application requirements of ESIS 1, and then you find also employees and other workers, their suppliers, consumers, customers, local communities, and so on. When we have, with regard to the social matters, we would, for example, ask the employees or workers in the value chain. And nature may be considered as a silent stakeholder, and in this case, we have to collect data, for example, on the conservation of species to support the undertaking's materiality assessment. So we cannot ask the nature, we cannot ask the trees, and then we have to use this data, scientific-based data, to decide if a topic is material or not. And then in the first step, we have to identify what are the stakeholders of our company. Here we see an example from Heidelberg Materials. We have the employees as relevant stakeholders, local communities, customers, suppliers, and so on, until the universities and research institutions. And then we decide how is the stakeholder engagement done. For example, the dialogue format for employees is to have virtual and on-site meetings, work meetings, to get informed about their situations. And then we have, for example, for the customers, customer events to see what are their needs. And so, another last slide about stakeholder engagement is an example from the automotive company BMW Group. And this is a part of the stakeholder engagement policy of BMW. It's not part of the sustainability report. Heidelberg Materials was part of the sustainability report. The information we have seen on the slide before about the stakeholder engagement, this stakeholder engagement is part of the policy of BMW, and the results of this policy are disclosed in the sustainability report of BMW. So we have different levels of engagement and different methods of engagements, and it starts with inform. We have a low level of engagement, and then we get to collaborate with a high level of engagement. We try to get, for example, with surveys, the information from all the stakeholders. So the companies have to conduct surveys with their stakeholders to get more information for the materiality assessment, to finally decide which data points have to be collected, measured, and disclosed. So this is the relationship between stakeholder engagement, stakeholder dialogue, materiality assessment, and sustainability reporting. And I want you to have a look in the reports of the selected company. What kind of stakeholders did they identify? Do they disclose their different groups of stakeholders? And how do they engage with their stakeholders? On which level, for example? Which methods do they use? Do they make online surveys? Do they have workshops with internal stakeholders of the company? For example, responsibilities of the HR to get information about the social matters. They often have, or they tend to have workshops instead of surveys. We conduct surveys if we have a larger group of stakeholders. For customers, that could be a good format. So I want you then to work on your sustainability report again, and then add some more information about how did they decide what to disclose, or what is the stakeholder engagement about, and do they probably disclose information about this process and the relationship to the materiality assessment? Probably not, but I'm sure you will find some information about what are the stakeholders of the companies and how do they interact, the company itself and the stakeholder. So that would be the next part I want you to work on, to develop your slides further.